Welcome to Tales of the Bard. Step into a world where stories come alive and imagination knows no bounds. Join me as I weave enchanting tales reminiscent of the bards of old, sharing legends, myths, and original stories that will transport you to distant lands and forgotten times. As the tavern settled into a hushed anticipation once again, the patrons leaned in, eager to hear more about the mysterious Skryla, the druid who had revealed herself in her true form. Jonty, sensing the curiosity, took his place by the hearth once more, his lute resting in his lap as he strummed a few soft chords. He glanced around the room, knowing that the question was on everyone's mind: what other forms can Skryla take? With a sly smile, the bard began to weave the next chapter of his tale, the shifting nature of Skryla. Skryla is no ordinary druid, Jonty began, his voice filled with reverence and mystery. Her connection to the natural world runs deeper than most, for she does not merely command the elements or speak to the animals, she becomes them. Through the ancient magic of the Blue Tree Network, Skryla was gifted with the power of shape-shifting, allowing her to take on the forms of the creatures she protects. Jonty's fingers moved gently over the lute, the music echoing the shifting nature of Skryla's power. You've already seen her as the great spider Skryla, weaving webs and protecting Ronan and Lyra as they traveled through the northern mountains, but the spider is only one of the many forms she can take. The bard's voice softened as he spoke of the magic that granted Skryla her unique gift. Her ability to shift into different forms is tied to the balance of nature itself. Each form serves a purpose, and Skryla uses these forms not for power but for protection. Whether it's to guide her allies, defend the forests, or outwit her enemies, Skryla's transformations are as varied as the wilds she guards. The Swift Silverhawk. Johnny's music shifted, taking on a lighter, faster tempo, like the beat of wings through the sky. One of Skryla's most favored forms is that of the Silverhawk, he said, his voice filled with the grace and agility of the bird. When she needs to move swiftly across the land or when she must scout ahead without being seen, Skryla takes the shape of a sleek hawk, her feathers shimmering like moonlight in the sky. The bard smiled, his eyes gleaming as he painted the image of the hawk in the minds of his listeners. In this form, Skryla can soar high above the treetops, her sharp eyes spotting any danger long before it reaches her allies. Her speed is unmatched, and her silent flight allows her to observe without ever being noticed. Many have looked to the sky and seen only a bird, never realizing that they were under the watchful gaze of a powerful druid. Jonty's voice took on a more thoughtful tone as he added, "It's said that when the moon is full, the Silverhawk can fly faster than the wind itself, carried by the magic of the blue trees. No distance is too great, no terrain too difficult for Skryla in this form." The ferocious white wolf. The music shifted again, this time to a deeper, more primal rhythm, as Jonty introduced another of Skryla's powerful forms. But when stealth is not enough, and the time comes to fight, Skryla can take the shape of the white wolf, he said, his voice low and filled with the wild power of the creature. The patrons shivered slightly as Jonty described the fearsome form. In this form, Skryla becomes a fierce and powerful predator. Her fur is white as snow, and her eyes glowing with the magic of the earth. The white wolf is a protector of the forests, a guardian of the wild places, and when Skryla takes this shape, she can call upon the strength of the pack. Jonty's fingers moved faster, the music rising in intensity. As the white wolf, Skryla is a force to be reckoned with. Her speed, her strength, and her keen senses make her a deadly opponent in battle. And yet, even in this fearsome form, Skryla fights not for herself, but for the balance of the natural world. She defends the innocent, protects the wilds, and ensures that the forces of darkness do not overrun the land. The bard's voice softened again as he added, "It's said that when the white wolf howls under the full moon, the very trees tremble with her power. She calls to the spirits of the wild, and they answer, lending her their strength in times of great need." The mysterious serpent of the river. Jonty's music took on a more fluid, almost hypnotic quality as he continued. But Skryla's forms are not limited to the creatures of the land and sky. She is also one with the rivers and streams, and when she needs to move unseen through the waters, she takes the form of the river serpent. The bard smiled as he described this elusive form. The river serpent is a creature of grace and mystery, its body long and sinuous, moving through the water with effortless ease. In this form, Skryla can swim through the deepest rivers, slipping past enemies unnoticed, or striking with precision from beneath the surface. Johnny's voice dropped to a whisper, adding an air of secrecy to the tale. Few have ever seen the river serpent, for she moves silently through the waters, her scales blending with the reflections of the trees and sky. But those who have caught a glimpse speak of a creature with shimmering scales of green and blue, her eyes glowing with the ancient magic of the wilds. The bard's music flowed like the river itself as he continued. In this form, Skryla can traverse great distances through the waterways, carrying messages or secrets from one part of the realm to another. She is the keeper of the rivers, and no current is too strong, no tide too swift for the river serpent to navigate. The gentle deer of the forest. Jonty's music shifted once more, becoming softer and more peaceful as he described one of Skryla's more gentle forms. Not all of Skryla's transformations are meant for battle or stealth. There are times when she must approach the creatures of the forest with kindness and care, and in these moments, she becomes the white deer. The bard's voice was filled with warmth as he spoke of this gentle creature. In the form of the white deer, Skryla moves through the forest with grace and serenity. Her presence brings calm to the animals, her soft eyes filled with understanding. In this form, she can communicate with the creatures of the wild, reassuring them, guiding them, and protecting them from harm. Jonty's fingers played a slow, delicate melody, like the soft rustling of leaves in the breeze. The white deer is a symbol of peace in the wilds. When the animals of the forest see her, they know they are safe. Her magic soothes their fears, and even the fiercest of predators will lower their heads in respect. The bard smiled, his voice filled with admiration. In this form, Skryla is a guardian of the natural world, ensuring that the balance between predator and prey, between life and death, remains intact. Her presence is a reminder that the wilds, though untamed, are also filled with beauty and peace. The power of many forms. Jonty's music slowed, his voice filled with reverence as he brought the tale to its conclusion. Skryla's gift of shapeshifting is not just a tool. It is a reflection of her deep connection to the natural world. Whether she takes the form of the silver hawk, the white wolf, the river serpent, or the white deer, each transformation serves a purpose, a way for her to protect the wilds and the balance of nature. The bard's fingers moved gently over the strings, the final notes of the melody carrying a sense of peace and power. But there are other forms still, ones that remain shrouded in mystery. Some say she can take the shape of creatures long thought extinct. Others whisper of forms so ancient and powerful that even the Druids dare not speak of them. But one thing is certain, Skryla is a guardian of the wilds, and with her many forms, she will continue to protect the world from the forces that would see it undone. Jonty smiled as he looked around the room, his voice soft and filled with wonder. And so, my friends, remember this. The next time you walk through the forest, or watch the rivers flow, or see a bird soaring high above, it may be more than just nature you are witnessing, for Skryla is always watching, always protecting, in whatever form the wilds require. The patrons sat in thoughtful silence, the weight of the story settling over them. Jonty, ever the master storyteller, let the final notes of his lute fade into the air, leaving the room filled with a sense of awe and mystery. After a moment, the tavern erupted into applause, the excitement and curiosity buzzing through the crowd. With a final bow, Jonty stood and left the tavern, leaving the patrons to wonder about the true extent of Skryla's powers and the form she had yet to reveal. The tavern was filled with the usual warm glow, but tonight there was a palpable sense of curiosity hanging in the air. Jonty, the bard, had already told many tales of Skryla and her shape-shifting abilities, but the patrons wanted more. As they gathered around the hearth, one brave soul from the crowd finally asked the question that had been on everyone's mind. Can Skryla transform into mythical beasts? Jonty's eyes gleamed with mischief, and a smile curled at the corners of his lips. He gently strummed his lute, letting a few soft notes fill the space as he prepared to answer. The bard knew that this was no ordinary question. It was one that would open the door to legends, long whispered among druids and the creatures of the wilds. The limits of Skryla's power. Now that, Jonty began, his voice low and filled with intrigue, is a question for the ages. You see, Skryla's power is vast. She can shift into creatures of the wild with ease, the spider, the hawk, the wolf, and more. But can she take on the form of mythical beasts, creatures that exist only in legends? That, my friends, is a tale woven into the very fabric of druidic magic. The patrons leaned in closer, their eyes wide with anticipation. Johnny's fingers danced over the lute strings, playing a slow, haunting melody that seemed to echo the mystery of the question. Skryla's connection to the Blue Tree Network gives her the power to shift into many forms, Jonty continued. But there are rules to this magic, limits set by the ancient forces of nature itself. The creatures she transforms into must be tied to the natural world, real living beings who inhabit the forests, skies, and rivers. However, Jonty paused, letting the word hang in the air, his smile widening. There is one exception. The mythical beasts of the blue trees. The bard's music shifted, becoming more mystical, as though calling forth ancient secrets from deep within the earth. Long ago, when the world was younger and the wilds were untamed, the blue trees were said to be home to more than just the animals we know today. In those days, the forest was filled with mythical creatures, beings of incredible power that roamed the lands alongside the Druids. Jonty's voice dropped to a whisper, as though sharing a sacred secret. These creatures were not bound by the same rules as the beasts of the world. They were made of magic itself, born from the very essence of the earth, sky, and stars. Dragons, phoenixes, griffins, creatures of fire, wind, and stone. They lived in harmony with the Druids, protecting the balance of nature in ways that no ordinary creature could. The patrons gasped softly, their imaginations running wild with images of these mythical beings. Jonty smiled, knowing that he had captured their attention. But as the ages passed, these creatures faded from the world, their forms disappearing into legend. Some say they retreated deep into the wilds, hiding away until the world was ready for their return. Others believe they merged with the blue trees themselves, their essence becoming one with the ancient magic of the forest. The gift of the mythic form. Jonty's music grew more intense, the rhythm of the lute echoing the power of the mythical beasts. Skryla, as one of the most powerful druids of her time, has a rare connection to these ancient creatures. Though she cannot summon them, she has the ability to channel their essence, taking on the form of a mythical beast in moments of great need. The bard's eyes gleamed as he described the transformation. But this is no ordinary shape-shifting. To take on the form of a mythical creature, a dragon, a phoenix, or even a griffin, Skryla must call upon the deepest magic of the blue trees. It is not a power she wields lightly, for it is both a gift and a burden. In these forms, she is more than just a druid. She becomes a being of pure magic tied to the very fabric of the world. Jonty's fingers slowed, playing a more measured, deliberate tune. The transformation is not without its risks. Taking on the form of a mythical beast requires an incredible amount of energy. It drains not only her strength, but the magic of the earth itself. The blue trees can only support such a transformation for a short time, and if Skryla were to remain in these forms for too long, it could upset the balance of nature. The patrons sat in stunned silence, the gravity of the magic settling over them. And so, Jonty continued, Skryla only uses this power in times of great peril, when the natural world is threatened by forces beyond the strength of ordinary creatures. In those moments, she becomes a guardian of legend, a protector of the realm unlike any other. The mythical forms. Jonty's voice lowered as he described the mythical forms Skryla could take. There are 3 mythical beasts that Skryla can transform into, each tied to one of the ancient elements of the world. The fire drake. Jonty's fingers played a fiery melody, quick and sharp. First is the fire drake, a powerful dragon-like creature born of flame and molten rock. When Skryla takes this form, her body becomes a massive serpentine figure with scales that glow like embers. Her breath is fire, her wings stir the winds into storms, and her roar shakes the very earth. The bard smiled, his voice filled with awe. In this form, Skryla can burn away the darkness, turning entire battlefields to ash with a single breath. But the fire is wild, and even Skryla must control it carefully. The fire drake's power is immense, but it is also dangerous, both to her enemies and to the world around her. The celestial griffin. The music shifted, becoming more majestic and uplifting. Next is the celestial griffin, a creature of the skies with the body of a lion and the wings of a great eagle. When Skryla takes this form, she soars through the air with unmatched grace, her wings shimmering with the light of the stars. Jonty's voice took on a tone of wonder. As the celestial griffin, Skryla can control the winds, summoning powerful gales to sweep away her foes or lift her allies to safety. She can see across vast distances, her eyes sharp enough to pierce the veil of darkness. This form is one of pure freedom, but it also requires immense concentration. To control the winds is to control the very breath of the earth itself. The earthbound behemoth. Jonty's music slowed, becoming heavier and more grounded. Finally, there is the earthbound behemoth, a creature of stone and soil, with the strength of the mountains themselves. In this form, Skryla becomes a towering figure, her body made of rock and earth, her footsteps shaking the ground beneath her. The bard's voice was filled with reverence. As the earthbound behemoth, Skryla can summon the power of the earth, causing the ground to split and rise at her command. She can protect the forests and mountains with walls of stone, and her strength is unmatched in battle. But the behemoth is slow, and its power comes at a cost. It draws heavily on the magic of the land, and if used for too long, it can leave the earth weakened. The balance of power. Jonty's music softened as he brought the tale to its conclusion. Though Skryla possesses the ability to take on these mythical forms, she knows the importance of balance. The creatures of legend are tied to the very fabric of the world, and their power is not to be wielded carelessly. Each transformation is a test of Skryla's strength and wisdom, for she must use these forms only when the balance of nature itself is at stake. The bard's voice was quiet now, filled with a sense of awe. And so, while the world may not see dragons or griffins every day, they still exist, through Skryla, the last guardian of their ancient magic. And when the time comes, when the wilds are in their greatest need, the world will see these mythical beasts rise again, if only for a brief, fleeting moment. The patrons sat in silence, their imaginations filled with images of Skryla transforming into creatures of legend. Jonty, satisfied with the wonder he had instilled, strummed the final notes of his lute, letting the room sit in quiet reflection. After a moment, the tavern erupted into applause, the excitement and curiosity buzzing through the crowd. Jonty gave a deep bow, knowing that he had given them a glimpse of a magic far older and deeper than they had ever known. With a final smile, Jonty left the tavern, leaving the patrons to wonder what other secrets the wilds held and what other mythical forms Skryla might one day reveal. The tavern was bustling as usual, but tonight the atmosphere held a heavier curiosity. The stories of Skryla had captivated the patrons for nights on end. Her shape-shifting powers, her ties to the natural world, and her ability to take on mythical forms had left everyone wondering about the source of her incredible abilities. As Jonty the bard entered the room, his lute slung over his shoulder, one of the patrons called out, "But where did Skryla's powers come from?" The tavern grew quiet as all eyes turned to Jonty. He smiled knowingly, his fingers dancing across the strings of his lute as he approached the hearth. The flames cast long shadows across the room, and the bard's voice dropped to a soft, mysterious tone. The origins of Skryla's powers, the gift of the first blue tree. "Ah, you wish to know the origin of Skryla's powers," Jonty began, his voice carrying an air of ancient mystery. "It is a tale that reaches far back into the mists of time, to an era when the world was still young, and the magic of the earth had only begun to awaken. Skryla's powers, you see, are not merely a druid's gift. They are tied to the very birth of the blue trees, the ancient network of magic that runs through the wilds." Jonty strummed a soft, hypnotic melody, the notes echoing like whispers of wind through the trees. Before there were kingdoms and cities, before men and elves even walked the earth, the world was ruled by the first beings, ancient spirits of nature, who existed in harmony with the land. They were the caretakers of the world, responsible for the balance of life and death, growth and dex. And the bard's eyes gleamed as he spoke, his voice filled with reverence for the ancient forces. These first beings had no form. They were made of pure magic, flowing through the rivers, breathing with the wind and sleeping within the stones. But one among them was different. She had a vision, a dream of a world where magic could be harnessed and shaped, where it could protect and heal. Her name was Araneth, the first guardian, and she is the true source of Skryla's powers. The creation of the blue tree. Jonty's music deepened, the rhythm echoing the heartbeat of the world itself. Araneth sought to bind the magic of the earth to something living, something that could grow and evolve with time. And so with her power, she created the first of the blue trees, a magical tree whose roots stretched deep into the heart of the earth, drawing forth its life force and connecting it to the natural world above. The patrons listened in rapt attention as Jonty continued. The blue tree was unlike anything the world had ever seen. Its leaves glowed with a soft blue light, and its branches hummed with the power of the wilds. The tree was alive with the essence of the first beings, a conduit of magic that connected the land, the sky, and all creatures that walked the earth. From this tree, a vast network was born, a web of magic that spread across the world, allowing those who were attuned to it to draw on the power of nature itself. Jonty smiled, his fingers playing a lighter, more ethereal melody. But Araneth knew that the tree needed a guardian, someone who could protect it from those who might seek to exploit its magic. And so, she gave a part of her own essence to the tree, creating the first druid of the blue tree. This druid would be able to speak to the trees, to shift into the forms of animals, and to command the elements. She would be a protector of the natural world, a guardian of the balance. The bard's voice softened. This was the beginning of the line of druids to which Skryla belongs. Over time, the power of the blue tree passed from guardian to guardian, each druid growing stronger in their connection to the wilds. And Skryla was chosen as the latest in this ancient line, the awakening of Skryla. The music shifted, taking on a more intimate tone as Jonty spoke of Skryla's beginnings. Skryla was not always the powerful druid you know today, he said, his voice filled with warmth. She began her journey as a young girl, born into a small village nestled near one of the blue trees. Even as a child, she had a deep connection to nature. The animals seemed to understand her, and the wind carried her whispers. Jonty's fingers danced over the strings, creating a light, playful melody. But it wasn't until her 15th year that Skryla's powers truly began to awaken. One evening, as the sun set over the forest, she wandered deeper into the woods than she had ever gone before, drawn by a mysterious pull she couldn't explain. There, at the heart of the forest, she found the ancient blue tree that had watched over her village for centuries. The bard smiled as he continued. Skryla approached the tree, her heart racing with a mixture of fear and awe. The tree's leaves shimmered in the twilight, and as she reached out to touch its bark, she felt a surge of ancient magic rush through her. It was as though the tree recognized her, as though it had been waiting for her. The music grew softer, more mystical. In that moment, Skryla's connection to the blue tree was forged. She became the guardian of the tree, the latest in the line of druids who had protected it for generations. The magic of the tree flowed into her, awakening her shape-shifting abilities, her command over nature, and her deep connection to the natural world. The blessing of Araneth. Jonty's voice deepened with reverence as he spoke of the ancient powers. But Skryla's true power did not come from the tree alone. That night, as she stood beneath the glowing branches, she was visited by a vision of Araneth, the first guardian herself. Araneth's spirit appeared before Skryla, shimmering like starlight, her voice filled with the wisdom of ages. Jonty's music took on a haunting, ethereal quality as he continued. "You have been chosen," Araneth said to Skryla, her voice like the rustling of leaves in the wind. "The magic of the blue tree flows through you now, but it is more than just the power of the wilds. You are connected to the ancient magic of the earth itself, the magic of the first beings. With this power you will protect the balance of nature, and you will become the guardian of the blue trees for all time." The bard smiled as he described the scene. With Araneth's blessing, Skryla's powers grew. She was no longer just a druid. She was a vessel for the ancient magic of the first beings. Her ability to shift into animals, to speak to the wilds, and even to take on the form of mythical beasts came from this connection to the ancient forces that had shaped the world. The legacy of the blue trees. Jonty's music slowed, becoming more somber as he brought the tale to a close. Skryla's powers are a reflection of the ancient magic that still flows through the earth, a legacy of the first beings and the creation of the blue trees. But with this power comes great responsibility. Skryla knows that the balance of nature is fragile, and that the magic of the blue trees must be protected at all costs. The bard's voice softened. And so she uses her powers wisely, drawing on the strength of the blue tree network to heal the land, protect the creatures of the wild, and guard against those who would seek to disrupt the balance. Her powers are not just a gift, they are a sacred duty, passed down through the ages from Araneth herself. Jonty strummed a final, quiet note on his lute, letting the weight of the story settle over the tavern. The patrons sat in silence, their minds filled with the ancient magic of the blue trees and the incredible power Skryla wielded. After a long pause, the tavern erupted into applause, the excitement and wonder buzzing through the room. Jonty gave a deep bow, knowing that he had revealed a secret older than the kingdoms themselves. With a final smile, the bard left the tavern, leaving the patrons to marvel at the origin of Skryla's powers and the deep connection she shared with the ancient magic of the world. The tavern was filled with anticipation, as it often was when Jonty took to the hearth to share another tale of Skryla and the mysteries of the Blue Tree Network. Tonight, however, the air felt charged with something more. A question had been brewing in the minds of the patrons ever since Jonty had revealed the origins of Skryla's powers. Finally, one brave voice called out from the crowd, "Can Skryla transfer her powers to others?" Jonty's eyes sparkled at the question, and he paused, letting the silence settle over the room. He glanced around the tavern, watching as every face turned toward him, waiting for the answer. With a slow, deliberate movement, Jonty strummed his lute, playing a soft, mystical melody that seemed to swirl through the air like the wind in the trees. The nature of Skryla's power. "Ah, the transfer of such power," Jonty began, his voice soft but filled with weight, "is not something that is taken lightly. Skryla's connection to the blue trees is ancient and sacred, a bond forged over generations of guardianship. To simply give that power away, well, it would not be so simple." The bard's fingers moved gracefully over the lute strings, the notes echoing the depth of the question. Skryla's powers are deeply tied to the magic of the natural world, bound by the balance of life and death, growth and decay. They are not like ordinary magic, something that can be passed from one person to another. The power of the blue trees is a living force, and it chooses its bearers carefully. The patrons leaned in, eager for more. Jonty smiled and continued, "However, that does not mean the transfer of power is impossible. There are ways, but they come with great risk, both for Skryla and for the one who would receive such power." The Rite of the Blue Tree. Jonty's music shifted, becoming more haunting and mysterious. In the long history of the blue trees, there is an ancient ritual known as the Rite of the Blue Tree. This rite allows the guardian of the tree, the Druid in this case, Skryla, to share a portion of her power with another. But it is no simple gift. The bard's voice deepened, filled with the gravity of the ritual. The rite requires both the giver and the recipient to be bound by the same purpose, the protection of the natural world, the balance of the wilds. The one receiving the power must have a pure heart, for the magic of the blue trees does not tolerate selfishness or ambition. Any attempt to misuse the power will be met with devastating consequences. Jonty paused, letting the weight of the words settle over the room. If the ritual is performed successfully, a portion of the blue tree's magic flows into the recipient, granting them some of the abilities Skryla possesses: wild speak, the ability to communicate with animals and plants; wild shape, the power to take on the form of creatures; and even the ability to sense the presence of other blue trees in the world. The patrons exchanged glances, amazed at the thought of such power being passed from one to another. But Jonty's voice grew more serious as Way continued, "The price of power." "However," Jonty said, his tone more somber now, "this transfer is not without its price. The one who receives the power must be willing to give up a part of themselves in return. For the magic of the blue trees is not a gift to be taken lightly. It is a burden, a responsibility to the world itself." The bard's fingers played a slower, more melancholy tune. Once the power is shared, the recipient's connection to the world will change forever. They will no longer be as they once were. Nature's balance will become a part of them, and they will feel the weight of that responsibility in every decision they make. They will be tied to the Blue Tree Network, forever bound to protect the wilds. Jonty's eyes gleamed as he spoke of the consequences. And for Skryla, there is a cost as well. To share her power weakens her connection to the blue trees. Each time she performs the rite, she gives away a part of her strength. Too many times, and her bond with the magic could be broken forever, leaving her without the power she has protected for so long. A rare gift. Jonty's voice grew softer, more thoughtful. Because of this, Skryla has rarely performed the rite of the blue tree. It is not something she does lightly, for she knows the risks involved. But there are legends, stories of times when Skryla, or druids before her, have chosen to share their power with others. The bard smiled, his voice filled with reverence. One such tale tells of a young druid named Karen, who was gravely injured in battle while protecting a sacred grove. Skryla, seeing the purity of his heart and his dedication to the wilds, performed the rite to save him. She shared a portion of her power, granting Karen the strength to heal the land and continue his guardianship. Together, they defended the grove for many years, their powers intertwined through the magic of the blue tree. Jonty's music lightened, reflecting the bond that had formed between Skryla and Karen. But Skryla was careful. She knew that her power was not infinite, and that to give too much would mean risking the very balance she sought to protect. A temporary gift. The bard's fingers strummed a more playful, lighter tune. There is another way, however, a temporary sharing of power. In times of great need, Skryla has the ability to lend her magic for a short time, allowing an ally to wield her abilities without the full burden of the rite. Jonty's eyes gleamed with mischief. This temporary gift is often used in battle or moments of great danger. By channeling the blue tree's magic through her staff, Skryla can grant an ally the power of wild shape or wild sight, allowing them to transform or see through the eyes of a creature. But this power only lasts for a brief time. Once the danger has passed, the magic returns to Skryla, leaving the recipient unchanged. The bard chuckled, his fingers dancing over the lute strings. It's said that during one such battle, Skryla lent her powers to a warrior named Thalric, who used the form of a great bear to defend the forest from marauding trolls. For a short while, he fought with the strength of the wilds, tearing through the enemy ranks. But as soon as the battle ended, the magic faded, and Thalric returned to his human form, exhausted but victorious. A responsibility, not a gift. Jonty's music slowed as he brought the tale to a close. So you see, Skryla's powers can be shared, but they are not gifts to be given lightly. To take on the magic of the blue trees is to accept a great responsibility, a lifelong connection to the natural world and its balance. The bard's voice grew soft, almost a whisper. And for Skryla, the decision to share her power is not one she makes easily. Each time she does, she risks weakening her own bond with the blue trees. But when the world is in danger and the wilds cry out for protection, Skryla knows that the balance must be preserved, no matter the cost. The tavern was silent as Jonty finished, the weight of the tale settling over the room. The patrons, who had been eager to know whether Skryla could transfer her power, now understood that such magic was both a gift and a burden, a decision that carried great responsibility. As the applause began to fill the room, Jonty smiled, bowing deeply to his audience. And so, my friends, remember this. The power of the blue trees is ancient, but it is also fragile. To share that power is to share in the fate of the world itself. With a final strum of his lute, Jonty left the tavern, leaving the patrons to ponder the mystery of Skryla's powers and the responsibility that came with wielding the magic of the wilds.